What's the meter for this? Vyakhya Raho Japas Samadhya Apavagya Praya Param Purushate Vijidendriyanam. To study the Vedas and other Vedic literatures, to execute duties of Varnashram Dharma, to explain the Shastras, to stay in a chant mantra silently, and to be absorbed in trance. These different methods of liberation are generally only a professional practice and means of livelihood for those who have not conquered. Because such persons are forced to be crowned, their procedures may not be successful. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 6.15, Kechit Kevalaya Patya, Vasudeva Parayana, Akambam Varti Kartsnena, Niharam Nikavashanam. Only a rare person who is adopted complete, unalloyed devotional service to Krishna cannot root the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they may rise. He can do this simply by describing devotional service, just as the sun can immediately dissipate fog by its spirit. The real purpose of human life is to attain liberation from slavery. Such liberation may be achieved by many methods, but the Sāvaka Vijayana remains but all of them, more or less, depend on capacity and prosperity. Begins with service. Sukadeva Goswami says that those who are Vasudeva Parayana, who are fully surrendered to lotus possible, automatically achieve the results of moral silence, proper vows, simply by discharging the duties. In other words, these methods are not so powerful. If one takes devotional service, three of them are very easy. Mourner, for example, does not mean that one should just get speech. The tongue is meant to speak, but sometimes make a big show of a person being silent. There are many who observe silence suffering. Vaishnavas, however, do not observe such silence. Silence means not speaking foolishly. Speakers at assemblies, conferences, and meetings generally speak. This is described by Srila Goswami as Vaishnava. One who wants to say something and show himself to be a big orator, but rather than go on speaking nonsense, better to remain silent. This method of silence, therefore, is recommended to persons very attached. One who is not a devotee must speak nonsensically. He doesn't have the power to speak like a devotee. Thus, whatever he says is influenced by the illusory energy and is compared to the protein. One who speaks about the glories of the Lord, however, has no need to be silent. Sri Mahaprabhu recommends the Akani. One should go on chanting the glories of the Lord 24 hours a day. There is no question of becoming more silent. The 10 processes for liberation are not meant for the devotees. Wherever they are, one simply engages in devotional service to the Lord. All 10 methods of liberation are implemented through service. Radharani's proposal is that such processes may be recommended. Those who cannot conquer their senses. Devotees, however, have already conquered their senses. Sarvopadi Nirmuktam Tattvadvena Nirmalam. A devotee is already free from the soul contamination. The Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur therefore said, Pushkaman, Unikeshera Vaishya, Pratishtara Kare, Nirjanera Kare, Prabhu Harinam Devula. There are many who love to chant the Hare Krishna mantra for silent, solitary place. But if one is not interested in preaching, talking constantly to the non-devotees with the influence of the modes of nature. Therefore, unless one is extremely advanced in Krishna consciousness, one should not imitate Haridas Thakur, to ignore the distance from chanting always. Radharaj does not condemn such a person. He accepts it. Without active service to the Lord, simply by such methods, one cannot attain Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, everyone. It's wonderful to be back here in Boston. Time flies, and just passing through for a few days. I hope everyone is well and happy in Krishna consciousness. So in this verse, in this section, we of course hear the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj, and Lord Nrsimhadev touches Prahlad Maharaj, and through that Prahlad Maharaj is spiritually inspired. Otherwise, Nrsimhadev was very, very angry. He had just killed Hiranyakashipu. When he comes out of the pillar, then Nrsimhadev is referred to as Sthana. Hare Krishna Nrsimhadev is referred to as Sthana. So he's Ugra Nrsimha. He's very angry. He's very angry that his devotee has been harmed, has been challenged, has been hurt in so many ways, or tried to. So he's very angry. He's Ugra Nrsimha. But when he comes out of the pillar, he's called Sthana Ugra Nrsimha. So there's various types of Ugra Nrsimha. But Sthana Ugra Nrsimha is that Nrsimhadev who's just come out of the pillar, and he's extremely angry. He's the most angry, so he's the most intense Nrsimhadev. So the Nrsimhadev that we have in ISKCON Mayapur is Sthana Ugra Nrsimha, very intense. So the pujaris, the stapitas, when they were carving the deity, they said, this isn't a good idea. Because if you worship this deity, whoever worships him, particularly the pujaris, but anyone around, it's intense. Be very, very careful. Because Nrsimhadev, he has these claws, and he'll just dig them into your heart and take out whatever attachments you have. So he takes no prisoners, as they say. But because Nrsimhadev is in Mayapur, any deity takes on the mood of the presiding deity. And who's the presiding deity in Mayapur? Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Mahavadanyaya. He's the most merciful incarnation. And therefore, Lord Nrsimhadev, he takes on this mood of being very merciful to the devotees. And so he's not as intense. So then, at the beginning, no one wanted to worship him. Just Janani Vasprabhu, Pankajangi Prabhu. But over the years, of course, many more devotees. So Nrsimhadev is very, very angry. No one wanted to go near. So then they pushed Prahlad Maharaj forward. Even Lakshmi Devi was fearful. She said, I've never seen him this intense. So then they sent Prahlad Maharaj. And when Nrsimhadev touched Prahlad Maharaj, then Prahlad Maharaj is inspired. He's inspired. He connects with the spiritual energy in an even more deep way than usual. And therefore he's inspired to chant these beautiful prayers in glorification of Nrsimhadev, and practically this entire chapter is verse by verse the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj. So it's very beautiful. And here what Prahlad Maharaj is saying is that there are so many different types of methods for liberation, but the topmost is devotional service. And this is, for us it seems so normal, because we hear this all the time. Krishna consciousness, the topmost yoga system. But for people, and for people who are enmeshed in the Vedic literatures, I mean, most people don't bother studying the Vedic literatures, but for those who are trying to be somewhat serious in what people may call Sanatana Dharma, it can be a very confusing experience, because there are so many different processes, so many different possibilities, so many different approaches to realize the Supreme.
or at least apparently so. Which is the topmost? Which is the best? Which is the easiest in this Kali Yuga? Which is the prescribed process? It's very, very confusing, and this is why when Vyasadeva penned the Vedic literatures, when his guru Narad Muni came, he said, actually what you've done is verily condemned. Jugupsitam. It's number one, it will give people an excuse for sense gratification in the name of religion. And number two, people of Kali Yuga are very low quality. And therefore, what you've done is you're confused them. They won't be able to get to grips with what they should actually do, because these Vedic literatures are so broad, so vast, so many different processes, as we see in this list. And this is just a short list. There's many, many more. But what actually should be done? What do I do now? Amidst the busyness of life, what do I actually do? So Srila Prabhupada's genius was that he made it very simple and very clear for the people of Kali Yuga. This is a process, this is a philosophy, and this is what you have to do now. And ultimately, as Srila Prabhupada is indicating in the purport also, is that what does Krishna consciousness all boil down to? Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion talks about the 64 processes of devotional service. You can read the whole list. It's recommended that, okay, try and tick as many off on the list on a daily basis. So many different items are there. And then Rupa Goswami himself whittles it down to 5. Or we can say Nava Anga Bhakti in the Bhagavatam, we have the 9 processes. Rupa Goswami then gives 5 as the most potent. Chanting the holy names, associating with devotees, Bhagavatam, serving the deity, and holy places, Dham, Seva. So these are the 5 most potent. And he says attraction for any one of these, a little attachment for any one of these can bring about bhava in the heart of the conditioned soul. So these are the 5 most potent. But then ultimately, of these 5, chanting the holy names is the most potent process. Chanting the holy names without offense. And Prabhupada here refers to Haridas Thakur, that simply chanting is a very difficult thing to do. One has to be, unless one is extremely advanced in Krishna consciousness, one should not imitate Haridas Thakur. And therefore Prabhupada gave a balance. Service, practical service, the mission, alongside chanting Hare Krishna. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur put out an advert. Of course, this is 100 years ago in Bengal, in Calcutta. He put out an advert that anyone who wants to come to our temple and chant 8 hours a day, chant 64 rounds. We'll feed them, you have a place to stay, and you can just chant all day. 8 hours, 1/3 of the day chanting. Then please come. So this was an advert. They put out an advert in various places, newspapers and so on. From this advert, Akinchana Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj came. He came and he just chanted all day. And he chanted minimum 64 rounds. Actually, he was chanting all the time. A doctor put a stethoscope to his chest. And what did he hear? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. He was always in ecstasy, always so happy, always so blissful. Because he was just chanting. Just chanting the holy names. So, very rare, exceptional personality. He was very, Prabhupada and Akinchana Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj had a very close relationship. He would come to visit Prabhupada often, and you can hear in the 1977 tapes that they have very sweet interactions. And he's always in ecstasy. He's always happy. He's always laughing. And he's just chanting the holy names. So this is really the essence of our process. So if there's one thing that we should learn in Krishna consciousness, there's many, many things to learn. But if there's one thing that we really have to master, that we really have to perfect, is how to chant the holy names of the Lord. So when we take spiritual initiation, then we vow to chant 16 rounds and of course follow the four regulative principles. Why do we follow the four regulative principles? Because it supports our chanting. Because breaking those regulative principles disturbs our ability to be able to chant the holy names. So when in the Mukta Charita, Raghunath Das Goswami, opening verse, he says, Nama Shreshtam Manumapi Sachiputram Atra Sarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Urupurim Mathurim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratitha Kripaya Shri Gurum Tannatosmi. So he begins with paying his obeisances, paying his respects to his spiritual master, Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami is paying respects to his spiritual master. And he is showing gratitude for the various gifts that he's received from his spiritual master. What has he received? He's received the association of Sachiputram Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his instructions. He's achieved the association of Shri Rupam Tasyagrajam. So Rupa Goswami and his elder brother, Sanatana Goswami. Urupurim, Mathurim, Goshtavatim, he's received Mathura Vas. Raghunath Das Goswami was living for almost 50 years on the banks of Radhakund, doing his bhajan. He was, of course, the assistant to Sarup Damodar Goswami. So he, when he left home, escaped, and that whole story is described, of course, in Chaitanya Charitamrita by Kaviraj Goswami. He leaves home and he goes to Jagannath Puri to be closer to Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu puts him under the care of Sarup Damodar Goswami. He's called Swarupera Raghu. And he's serving Sarup Damodar Goswami. And of course, we all know that in the evenings, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go to Gambhira. And in Gambhira, he would experience the deepest of ecstasies. And amidst those ecstasies, he would have two main associates with him, and that, of course, is Ramananda Rai and Sarup Damodar Goswami. Some scholars, they also posit or suggest that Raghunath Das Goswami was also there at times as well. Even if he wasn't, Raghunath Das Goswami would stay up and he'd be very eager when Sarup Damodar Goswami would come home in the early hours of the morning. He'd come home and he'd be in ecstasy. And Raghunath Das Goswami would, of course, want to know what happened. What did you experience? What was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doing? What was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying? What did he experience last night? What can I learn? So he's very eager to know. So through this, and then of course, Sarup Damodar Goswami was keeping Gadacha's diary entries. So through this association with Sarup Damodar Goswami, potentially being present at times also in the Gambhira, and through the diary entries, Raghunath Das Goswami was immersed in the pastimes of Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in Govardhan, Radhakund, on the banks of Radhakund, Raghunath Das Goswami, for 3 hours every day, he would speak about the glories of Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in the audience, of course, was Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So through Raghunath Das Goswami's association, Kaviraj Goswami learnt so much about the pastimes of Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he used that as one key element of his inspiration to write about the glories of Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Raghunath Das Goswami was there on the banks of Radhakund. He was doing his bhajan. He was glorifying Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so he received Radhakundam, Girivaramaho. The association is, Radhakund is of course on the foothills of Giriraj. He received so many wonderful things. But the first thing is Nama Shreshtam. Of all of these wonderful gifts that Raghunath Das Goswami is thanking his spiritual master for. He says, Nama Shreshtam. It's the topmost of all gifts from his spiritual master. How beautiful. So, why do you need a spiritual master to give you the holy name? A person can walk through the door, and we have it on the walls, we have it in the books. You know, we're chanting the mantra all the time. It's not a secret mantra. Not a secret mantra. It's there, it's very open. Usually you receive diksha. Initiation in the Vedic process is diksha. And diksha technically means second initiation. Those mantras are secret. They're whispered into the ear of the disciple. The disciple does not chant those mantras out loud. So it's special, it's intimate. Upanayana. A disciple comes closer to God, to Krishna. This is the Vedic process. So then what is this Hare Krishna? Why do we need to receive initiation into chanting Hare Krishna? Why does that? It's not special in the sense that it's not secret, it's not exclusive. Anyone can come and just start chanting Hare Krishna. By the time one takes initiation, they probably they should have been chanting Hare Krishna for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, depending on who your spiritual master is. Everyone has a different standard. But they're already chanting Hare Krishna. So then why do you need to be initiated into chanting Hare Krishna? Why is it that this initiation ceremony has to take place? You're already chanting. You already have the holy name. You already have the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. What is the necessity of going through this initiation process? So it's understood that the spiritual master, alongside giving formally the mantra, and in this way he gives a new name, so and so Das, so and so Devi Dasi. Shri Gauritai ki, Jagnabalda Sivandramai ki, Shri Radha Gopi Vallabh ki. So he gives a new name, which gives it conception, changes the conception of the disciple. Now, from today onwards, I am Das. I'm a servant. And alongside that, he gives a certain conception of chanting. So when we receive this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra formally from the spiritual master, in the association of the Vaishnavas, in front of the fire, through that formal process, the spiritual master also confers unto the disciple a certain understanding of what the Hare Krishna mantra is. There's fine print. So it's not just chant 16 rounds any which way, but we have to chant 16 rounds attentively. And that word is dangerous. It's a game changer. Because attentively, Nishta means to be able to sit down. This is strong Nishta, solid Nishta. It means to be able to sit down and chant 16 rounds without the mind wandering anywhere. 16 rounds. Be able to chant the holy name 2 hours without the mind wandering anywhere, to be absorbed in the chanting of the holy names. It's quite a task, especially in today's age, where the mind is such a flickering thing and there are so many distractions in today's modern world. We're so busy. I thought when I become a monk, then life's going to be simple. I'll have plenty of time for spiritual practice, plenty of time to cultivate my reading and chanting, and I'll become a pure devotee very, very quickly. That was my hope, my conception, my ideal. But it's not so simple. It's not so simple. We really have to find quality time to be able to chant the holy names. It's not a walk in the park, and it doesn't come automatically. Just like we put so much effort into so many things in material life. Some of you students work so hard to study. I remember how hard I worked to get my degree. And then I worked in banking for a couple of years. They pay you well, but there's no free lunches in this world. You have to work hard. You have to work hard. And then somehow when we come to Krishna consciousness, then we think, okay, chalega, whatever comes. Okay, just do the rounds somehow or another, maybe while watching TV, having a conversation, while driving, while cooking, while cleaning, so many other things, multitasking. But get it done and say, okay, Bhagwan, okay, Krishna, here you are. I've done my 16 rounds, I'm following the vow, everything's okay. Happy? No. No. Krishna's not happy. Okay, you're following the vow. You're following the letter of the law. But how about the spirit of the law? What is a spirit? What is the mood? Krishna's looking for one thing. He has everything. He's a cause of all causes, a source of all that be. He doesn't need anything. But from us, he's looking for one thing and one thing only. Just a little bit of love, some genuine interest in him. And that's something that we really have to work on cultivating. Because the conditioned living entity has various elements which make him lazy in spiritual subject matter, distracted, and disinterested. Krishna Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Jadya Vikshepa Laya. Laziness, distraction, disinterest. And these things stop us from actually really connecting with Krishna. And the best way to connect with Krishna is through the holy names. Abhinnatam Nami Namino. This is Krishna. But how to really connect with him through this chanting, we have to be very, very determined, very, very clear that this is the goal of our lives. This is the most important thing in our lives as devotees. And therefore, to make quality time is very, very important. But it's not just about those 2 hours. If you read the 10 offenses, then it's not about those 2 hours. It's about what we do the rest of the day. What do we do in the rest of our time? If you analyze those 10 offenses, then okay, don't cause offense to the Vaishnavas. Number one, first and foremost. Follow the orders of the spiritual master. The spiritual master gives many orders. And to not preach to the faithless. So many things. But you see, what do we do in the other 22 hours of the day? This is fundamental to how we ultimately come forward and sit down and chant the holy names of the Lord. So we have to give this real quality time, quality focus. And then, because many times you see that devotees, they get to a stage, either, I see two main things. One is devotees come to a stage where they say, it doesn't really work. It's not really working for me, this process. And they become a little slack, or they leave. This is one version. Another is, a person's just going through the motions, and they're just doing the process every day. But it's kind of hashed. Get it done, get it out of the way, so then I can carry on and do what I really want to do. So there's this meme that I like. So the person's got the bead bag, and they're chanting, they're watching TV, they're talking to their friends, they're doing different things, and they're kind of chanting, got the hand in the bead bag, and then once it's over, 16 rounds are over, and they get the bead bag, and they swirl it around, and then throw it up. And it goes out, up into the sky, and out into the stratosphere, and you see the earth, and you see the bead bag. And it says, finished until tomorrow. And if that's the attitude, okay, so no one does that. But if that's the internal attitude towards the holy name, therefore towards Krishna, then how much advancement can we expect to really make? How much experience can we really expect to have? So Satchidananda Maharaj says, beg Krishna when you're chanting that at least one mantra Just allow me to taste one mantra. Allow me to have some experience. Because ultimately, Krishna consciousness is not just a set of rules, things you have to do, things you have to follow, things you can't do. Krishna consciousness is meant to be an experience. So you beg the holy name, please, Harinam Prabhu, allow me to experience one name, just one name. And over time, even if it's just one name out of 1,728 mantras in a day, just that one name, if you have it daily, then it builds, it grows, and the experience is fortified, is deepened, and that one becomes two, and that two becomes four, and it increases exponentially. So we have to have an experience when we're chanting the holy names. And that requires some real focus. So they say in Brihad Bhagavatam, Sanatana Goswami explains, it's a very nice verse, Yad yad sankalpa bhovatsa nija mantram japishyasi tat prabhavena tat sarvam vancha titam sachetsati. He explains that, and Sanatana Goswami, he comments on his own work. So it's referred to as an auto-commentary. He writes Brihad Bhagavatam and then he comments on his own verses. So in his commentary, Sanatana Goswami says that the sadhaka should have an intention, sankalpa. Yad yad sankalpa bhovatsa vatsa. So this is the guru of Gopakumara preaching to him. And he says to him, vatsa. Vatsa is such a nice term, like a calf. My calf, my beloved calf. He says, before you chant the holy names, you have to have a sankalpa, an intention. Why am I doing this? What am I doing here? Sometimes you just put the hand into the bead bag and just start doing shnik shnik rama, shnik shnik rama, shnik shnik. What am I actually doing here? So we have to have a very clear idea, a very clear conception. What is this that I'm doing? What am I engaging in? Be very, very conscious. Because the nature of the mantra is that for the conditioned soul, it's repetitive. Same mantra, again and again and again. And so when we do something repeatedly, the tendency is to go on autopilot. This can't be on autopilot. This has to be very conscious, very purposeful. So we have to begin with an intention. What am I doing here? What is my purpose? And what is the goal? So what's the goal? Rupa Goswami says, Kriti sadhya bhavet sadhya bhavasa sadhana vida. He says that the goal of our sadhana, of our spiritual practice, is bhava. This is a definition of sadhana. Rupa Goswami is a science, he writes Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, it's the science of bhakti. So he gives the definition. If you have a textbook, what's the first thing the textbook does? It defines the terms. So Rupa Goswami defines sadhana. He defines bhava, and then he defines prema. What are the characteristics of these various processes? So he defines sadhana. He says sadhana is that activity which engages the mind and senses by which one develops bhava. So this is his definition of sadhana bhakti. So, of course, that sounds so far. And so when something is far, very high, then the tendency is to dismiss it in the heart and mind. But then Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur saves the day. He gives us this process, 9 stages of bhakti, and the 8th stage is bhava. But then before that, there are various other stages. And he gives symptoms of these stages. So we have to understand, where am I at now? And how do I make my way to the next stage? So right now, I'm initiated, I'm going through an Nartanivriti, but my goal is bhava. Longer term goal is bhava. Ultimate goal is prema. but right now I have to get to Nishta. Somehow or another, I have to get to Nishta. How do I get to Nishta? How do I become steady in my spiritual practice? How do I reduce the disturbances in my heart and mind? How do I get freed from attachments? How do I develop some attachment towards Krishna? Because ultimately we talk a lot about anartha nivritti, but there also has to be artha pravritti. So many things. Otherwise, Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur said, we speak so much about neti, not this, not this, not this, not this, anarthas, things which are unwanted, things which we don't like. But if we continue doing that, we become Mayavadis. Mayavadis say neti, not this, not this. So alongside that, we have to have cultivation of the positive aspects of Krishna consciousness. I have to become connected with Krishna. Krishna is a person. Why does he perform so many beautiful, wonderful pastimes? Why does he take the trouble of coming here? It's for our benefit. It's to nourish us. It's to make us attracted to him. So that we can, param drishtva nivartate, we can grab hold of a higher taste, a higher conception of reality, a deeper experience, and develop our loving bond, our relationship with Krishna. And the key means to do that is through Harinam Prabhu, really taking shelter of Harinam Prabhu. And it is our ultimate shelter. Everything else in this world lets us down. Everything else in this world is a disappointment. Nothing really satisfies. We all know that, either through experience, observation of others, or Shastra, different levels of experience. But ultimately, Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Eva Kevalam. And these statements are not to be taken lightly. It's the reality. And through our spiritual practice, we have to realize that reality. I'm going to stop there and see if there's any comments, questions, criticisms, complaints.
Before we start chanting,